Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Public Service Commission of South Carolina. Today is October 25th. It's 2 o'clock, and we're here for a new applicant for statewide moving authority. Before I take roll, please join me in a brief moment of silence. Thank you. Present in the hearing room, we have Commissioners Thomas C. Williams, Belzer J. Williams, and joining us virtually, we have Commissioners Irvin, Caston, and Powers. Attorney Stark, if you would, please read the docket.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, other commissioners, we're here for the proceeding in docket number 2021-219-T, which concerns the application of Uniform Movers of Charleston, LLC, for a Class E household goods certificate of public convenience and necessity for operation of a motor vehicle carrier. This applicant is seeking statewide moving authority. The proceeding has been scheduled for today, Monday, October 25th, 2021 at 2 p.m. and will be conducted virtually. Mr. Chairman, I believe the docket to be in order.
Thank you, sir. We will take appearances from the parties at this time. Applicant?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Claire Goodman. I'm here representing the applicant, Uniform Movers of Charleston, with their owner and operator, Gressitt Holt.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Pleasure seeing you today, and appreciate you joining us virtually. Office of Regulatory Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Ben Muschin, and I'm here on behalf of ORS.
All right, thank you, Attorney Muschin. Thank you for being here today and joining us virtually. All right, are there any preliminary matters we need to discuss before the applicant calls their first witness?
Mr. Chairman, we did amend the application, and we would like to introduce the amended application into the record. Just to note, there are two changes to the application. One on page 4, where we adjusted the proposed rates to reflect those in our tariff. And one on page 10 regarding the question about general operational safety, which my client has answered in the affirmative for that. And we also did include some additional information from U-Haul as far as additional insurance coverage to that amended application.
All right, so at this time, the applicant's amended application will be marked and entered into the record as hearing exhibit 1. Is there anything else, ma'am, before you get started?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I would also like to introduce the shipper witness affidavit to be entered into the record as hearing exhibit 2.
All right, affidavit of shipper witness Shannon Roth will be marked and entered into the record as hearing exhibit 2. Okay, is there anything else?
No, sir.
Attorney Goodwin? No? All right. You may call your first witness.
I would like to call Gressitt Holt, the owner and operator of Uniform Movers of Charleston, to the stand.
All right, Mr. Holt, if you would please take the witness stand and pause to be sworn in by our court reporter.
Do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Goodwin, you may proceed.
Mr. Holt, did you prepare or cause to be prepared 5.5 pages of pre-filed direct testimony for this docket?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any changes or corrections you wish to make to that testimony?
I do not.
I move to introduce the pre-filed testimony as if given orally from the stand.
Mr. Holt's pre-filed direct testimony will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Mr. Holt, so where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Simpsonville, South Carolina, which is in the upstate close to Greenville.
And where did you go to high school?
So technically I didn't go to high school. My parents educated or directed my education from home, we'll put it that way. But what that basically means is I took a myriad of college and AP courses online and in person in lieu of going to actual high school.
And then where did you go to college?
So I went to West Point, the United States Military Academy, which I would say was an interesting 4 years. And then when I found out I was not going to be serving, afterwards, I moved back down into the Charleston area.
Great. And what did you major in college?
So I majored in law and French with a systems engineering emphasis.
So can you talk about a little bit about your job experience, some of your first jobs, and some of your jobs working in the moving industry?
Yeah, so both my brother and I started working in the moving industry in high school with two men in the truck, just as a way to make some extra money. When my brother went to the Citadel, he helped another Citadel alumni start professional moves in Charleston down here in Charleston, which we both worked for. And then we broke away from that company, to start something of our own. And that's kind of how I got to here.
Yeah. So did you see the successes, or have you always been interested in this industry and wanted to start your own company?
Yeah, I think we saw a lot of ways to build on and expand and improve on what we had seen in the company down here, and seeing that opportunity is kind of what gave us the idea to go out on our own.
Yeah, that's great.
Mr. Chairman.
So we,
Attorney Goodwin, if you would, 1 second, please.
Mr.
Vice Chair Belzer.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask the witnesses to slow down a little bit? We're having some breakup, and I think if they talked a little bit slower, it might help us hear them. Thank you.
All right, Attorney
Yes, of course.
Goodwin, did you understand that request?
yes, sir, I do. Yes, ma'am. You
All
can
right.
slow down.
All right, please proceed.
So talk about starting your company. What have you been doing recently?
So without the licensing, pretty much what our emphasis has been on has been delivery and in-home moves. So essentially, if someone is having their floor redone or something like that, we'll go in, move the furniture, and then move it back in to its place after the renovations are complete. So that's been the majority of our business up to this point, just because obviously we're waiting on the additional licensing to get those orders.
Great. Once you do and you're starting to hire labor to help you, you're going to be providing them training yourself, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And your company was formed as a limited liability company in South Carolina in May of this year,
That's correct.
and you have done all of the requirements for noticing the public through the Post and Courier that's required.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you received any objections or feedback from that notice?
No, ma'am, I have not.
You plan to use U-Haul to begin, is that correct?
Yes, so until we built up enough capital to where I could justify the expense of the truck, I'm going to be using U-Haul. And that was through a lease agreement.
And you have other equipment that belongs to you that you'll be using?
Yes, ma'am. So all of the necessary equipment for the actual process of moving and protecting furniture, I already possess. And a lot of that has already been shown to the state and Mr. McGill.
Wonderful. As to your driving record, can you talk about
Attorney Goodwin?
Yes.
I hate to interrupt you again, but our court reporter is having some difficulty understanding you and your witness. And I'm hearing from our court reporter that it's mostly the witness. So I'm not sure if it's possible to move closer to the microphone for the witness, or maybe rearranging where you all are sitting. But
We can talk.
Is this better?
I'm sorry. Could you check your mic one more time?
Testing, testing.
All right, that is loud and clear. If you would please proceed, Attorney Goodwin.
Okay. As to your driving record, can you talk about your driving record and maybe any accidents you may have had?
Yeah, so I've had 3 accidents through the course of my life. One was in high school, single car accident, hydroplane. My junior year of college, I hit a deer. And then when I first moved here to Charleston at the beginning of the year, I had no at fault merge. Someone merged into me on the highway, but I've not been charged in any of those incidents.
So you have no judgments against you?
Yes, no judgments.
Have you ever been convicted of a crime?
I have not, no.
So can you just talk a little bit about what you foresee for your business, how you'd like to grow and expand your business, and sort of where you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, so with moving, kind of where I'd like to go with this over the next 5 to 10 years is as I expand the moving side of the business, I'd also like to get into storage. So I foresee on my 5-year horizon, hopefully having a couple of trucks that are running moves, and on the 10-year horizon, a storage unit where I can store stuff for those moves in addition to running actual moves. So I guess my long-term goal is to go from moving to also having moving and storage components. And that's kind of where I foresee the business expanding.
Mr. Commissioner, that concludes my questions for Mr. Holt. I would like to enter our proposed tariff as a hearing exhibit, and also our proposed bill of lading, which has some terms as a hearing exhibit.
The proposed tariff and bill of lading will be marked and entered into the record as hearing exhibit 3. All right. Vice Chair Belzer. All right. Attorney Muschin, cross-examination.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Powers?
Yes.
Let's give ORS opportunity for cross-examination, and you'll be first on the list when we get to commissioner questions.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have no questions.
All right. Attorney Muschin made that easy for us. Commissioner Powers?
Thank you again. Looking at page 3 of your application, it appears you have $225,000 in assets and only $20,000 in liabilities.
Commissioner Powers?
Is that correct?
Commissioner Powers, I hate to interrupt you, sir. So we're getting some feedback, and my technical advisors are telling me that Attorney Goodwin needs to mute her microphone while commissioners are asking questions. And I know that may be a bit cumbersome, but if you would work with us, Attorney Goodwin, allow the commissioners to ask their questions, and then once they finish, then unmute and answer the question, or your witness would answer the question. Is that acceptable, ma'am?
Yes.
All right.
That's fine.
Okay. All right. All right, Commissioner Powers, if you would ask that question one more time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. You have $225,000 in assets and only $20,000 in liabilities, according to your application. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, but you say you want to build up capital before you go forward with buying a truck or other things. It seems to me you got about $205,000 in capital right there.
The majority of that, of the assets are real estate assets wrapped up in a K5 that I don't have access to until I'm 25. So I don't have access to all of that real estate value as it stands presently. So that's the reason I'm not dipping into those finances at the current moment. But that is a good point as for where we potentially will be using money in the future.
Well, is this property that you claim has a value of $200,000? Is it in the name of your LLC?
It is not filed under the LLC. Those are personal assets.
Well, I mean, you either own the property or you don't.
I own the property. The property is mine, and it's in an LLC that is it's a separate LLC, 3G's LLC, and I am the beneficiary of that LLC.
Okay.
But it's a K5.
Well, my point is, if there was a claim against your LLC and your moving company, they may not have access to this property, and really, the property is not part of your business at this time. I don't know that it should be listed as an asset.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay. Also in your amended application, there's an ad that's on page, say page 16.
Which page are you describing, sir?
The ad on page 16 says Safe Move Plus Protection plus $1 million in liability coverage for people. Your application says you have $500,000 in coverage. Why the discrepancy there?
The discrepancy there is that this advertisement is the U-Haul coverage that will be in addition to the U-Haul trucks that will be running while we're renting them. The $500,000 policy coverage comes from the Progressive Insurance quote, which is for my personal company's liability insurance. And that's why you see kind of two different numbers there.
Okay. Well, wouldn't the U-Haul coverage go to you and not to the person that you're moving their furniture?
That's correct. The insurance goes to me because I'm the person renting.
So as far as the person who you're moving, they've only got $500,000 in coverage. Not the million.
Anything with the coverage is for the contents of the vehicle. So with whatever is within the contents of the vehicle is what U-Haul is saying is covered. But as far as what I am responsible to reimburse the customer for, that's up to that. That would be under that $500,000 policy, which is the personal company's policy, correct?
Well, I'm going to kind of bet that U-Haul has a lot of restrictions in that policy that they're not necessarily going to pay the person that you're moving.
I wouldn't anticipate that they would pay me at all, that U-Haul would pay me at all. I anticipate reimbursing the customer. It's going to be the impetus is going to be on me to try to get the money from U-Haul, from the insurance that I'm getting from U-Haul to protect the contents that I'm personally moving. So, obviously the customer is still going to be covered by my personal insurance, but it's not going to fall on the customer to chase after U-Haul. That's the impetus will be on me, obviously. In those.
Do you agree that the real estate is not in your LLC and should not be listed as an asset? Maybe a future asset, but you don't have it now.
Well, technically, I am the beneficiary, and I can use those assets at any time and direct those assets in any direction that I would like. So I am the owner and beneficiary of that K5 LLC. Now, if you would prefer that I not list it as an asset on the financial statement for the company, I think that makes sense. But it is the assets that I'm going to be using to expand the business, which is why I included it.
Okay. And you don't have a lease on a truck at this time either, right?
So we are leasing trucks from U-Haul in increments of 30 days. So we're leasing a truck as we speak.
But you don't have one today as you sit here.
Correct. Correct. Because I obviously, I don't have the licensing to perform those moves yet.
Okay. Now you put a $200,000 value on that property. Is that what was paid for it, or is that when it was? I mean, when was it bought? Where did that number come from?
That is physical dollar amounts. That is the value of the physical real estate appraisals plus sold property. So those are the actual amounts.
Okay. And as you say, you don't have access to it till you're 25. How old are you now?
I turned 25 February the 5th, so that's in 3 months.
Okay, we're getting close. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you, sir. Vice Chair Belzer.
Good afternoon, Mr. Holt. Are you there? Mr. Holt?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon.
Mr. Holt, you mentioned that you are leasing the U-Haul trucks or truck, I'm not sure if it's one or more, in increments of 30 days. And why are you doing that in increments of 30 days?
The reason for the longevity is really just to show both the state and customers that we are a company that is able to sustain moves for a significant period of time. Obviously, financially, it is more responsible to go, a move at a time. But we just wanted to show both the commission and customers that, this isn't a company that's on a day-to-day basis. This is something that will be there and be consistent regardless. So I understand that it might be a little more cost-effective to do it a different way, but, we just want to show that longevity of service.
Are you aware that the commission rules and regulations on the use of leased vehicles requires a long-term lease of at least 30 days?
I think I have a very good attorney that knows that and has informed me of the 30 days without telling me the specific.
Okay. And are you aware that a copy of that lease agreement must be maintained in the vehicle, and unless it's changed, it used to have to be filed with the PSC and ORS. I'd have to go back and check that. It's been a long time since I actually tried myself one of these cases. Or at least notify when the lease.
Ma'am, could you possibly repeat that, ma'am? It cut
sure.
out for a moment and I didn't quite catch what you said.
I said, are you aware that I encourage you and your attorney to look at that regulation, because there used to be a requirement that the lease agreement needed to be filed with the PSC and ORS, and then also an agreement, or notification to ORS when the agreement terminated. So I encourage you and your attorney to look at that regulation very carefully, if you would, okay?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that.
And are you also aware that there are, I call them placarding requirements, but requirements that any motor vehicle used by, should you receive your certificate, any motor vehicle used by your company would have to have name, their certification number on it, and those would have to be on that vehicle. Are you aware of that?
Yes, ma'am, I am aware of those regulations.
Okay. And when you own the truck, they're typically printed on the side. If you're leasing it, it could be a magnetic sign or other sign that you can put on and off. So just be aware of that, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I want to look at your pre-filed testimony if we could. And I'm looking at page 3 of 6. You with me?
Just one moment, ma'am.
Okay.
Go ahead, ma'am.
And it's in the first full paragraph. Well, it's the second paragraph. I'm not sure if the first one is a full paragraph, but it says Uniform Movers of Charleston currently utilizes U-Haul. You with me there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now flip over to page 4. And under where it says financial statement, you with me? Are you with me there? On page 4?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and under financial statement, the second sentence, it says Uniform Movers of Charleston currently has 3 trucks. Is there a discrepancy there?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That would just be a discrepancy.
Okay, and you don't show owning any trucks on your financial statement, so is that sentence in error on page 4?
Yes, ma'am. That sentence on page 4 would be an error.
Okay, so what do we need to do to that sentence to make it correct since you didn't modify your testimony?
Just bear with me for 1 second.
Yes, sir.
So my counsel and I will file an amended one if that fixes that particular typo, in addition to some other things if they come up. If that works for you, ma'am.
Well, I just want to, if we, do we just need to strike the first part that says, currently has 3 trucks? Do we just need to strike that? I just want to know.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just want to know what we need to do to correct.
The financials should reflect that I do not own any trucks, because that is correct. I'm only leasing trucks from U-Haul at this point.
Okay. Now, let me just caution you here. I can't see what you're doing, but you do not need to be discussing your answers with your counsel while I'm asking you questions, okay? I'm not sure what's happening, but just be aware of that, okay?
Yes, ma'am. We've got we had to scoot closer to the computer here, so we don't have a desk. So she's got the papers, and I'm working the mute and unmute button.
Okay.
So we got kind of a system going.
All right.
But, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I gotcha.
You have to answer these on your own. You can't confer with her right now. Okay. Now, I want to look at your, do you have your amended tariff available?
Yes, ma'am.
And I would ask you to look with me on section 3. The pages are not numbered, so I cannot, let's see, the cover sheet, the title, 2, 3, 4. It's about page 7, I think.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
And I'm looking at section 3.2 under valuation. And in 3.2.1, do you see anything wrong with that section?
Appears to me that there's another typo there, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
So that should read Uniform Movers of Charleston, obviously.
And
that is not the name of my company.
okay, so that's in lines 1 and lines 3 should be Uniform Movers. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
Okay, so your testimony is one thing and exhibit is another, so I'm gonna need you to make that correction. Well, if you're granted authority, you can file your amended tariff. Tell me when we need to have that. We need to have it before we review it, right? We need to have that before
Yes.
before we take it up on for a decision. So I'm going to ask the chairman if we can have a late filed exhibit for a corrected amended tariff.
Yes, you may have a late filed exhibit for a corrected amended tariff. That will be, we'll reserve exhibit 4 for that late filed exhibit.
Okay. You understand that, Mr. Holt? You'll need to, your counsel will need to file a corrected tariff.
Yes, ma'am, we're tracking.
Okay, all right. I appreciate your testimony and your appearance today. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Holt. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions for this witness?
Chairman Williams.
Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Holt, good to see you today. Would you describe for me your process for how you determined your tariff?
Yes, ma'am. So the process for how I went about determining my tariff was influenced by two things: my previous experience with moving and also my knowledge of the clientele in the Charleston area. So I previously worked for Professional Movers of Charleston here in the Charleston area. And so if you know anything about their tariffs, the tariffs that we pushed here are slightly similar, but the way that they're different is that I've kind of custom set them up to fit the clientele that we're shooting for in and around Charleston. So I think that a lot of the mileage and like the adjusted long delivery stuff is not stuff that was in or a part of the previous businesses that I've been a part of. We didn't really run deliveries like that. So all of these things I've created out of the knowledge that I have of the customers from talking to the clients, figuring out what they think is reasonable, what they think is fair, but also what helps me meet my profit margins and what I'm trying to do to make a profit here. And so that's kind of where all of my tariffs have come from, both my previous experience and seeing how they charged out in other moving companies, and then also trying to figure out how I want to do things my way to best help both myself and the clients.
Thank you. And in your application on the section that has to do with the federal motor carrier safety regulations, I've got one curious question and then just some more specific questions. Do you know what HM stands for in number 1? I'm learning as I go, so I'm learning from you. I realize we've all got a lot of papers or a lot of digital files.
I'm not sure what the HM stands for. I'm familiar with the FMCSR regulations, but I'm not sure about the HM.
Nor am I. It wasn't a trick question. It was an honest one. Well, would you talk through the elements here, 1 through 6, and talk about what they mean to you? Not in a lot of detail, but just enough for us to understand how your abilities to ensure that these are accurately done.
Yes, ma'am. So as far as with individual responsibility for ensuring compliance, that's pretty easy because at least for the foreseeable future, there will not be a job that occurs for our company that I'm not physically present and part of. And so I will literally be the person ensuring that there is compliance. But any of the people that we will have in charge of a crew, so the crew managers, are also going to be very well aware of what these regulations are, and will know that they should call me if they have a question as well. But we're going to have training not just about how to move furniture and how to be safe about that, but also with these regulations as well, so they have a familiarity with them. As far as a copy of the FMCSR and the HM regulations, obviously, I don't know what the HM regulations are, but the FMCSR, I have a PDF of those that's just on my phone. you can have a PDF document that you can download literally from offline to anywhere. So it's pretty easy to produce a copy of those. If there needs to be if there's a physical paper requirement, obviously, we could get that printed as well. So this driver safety and orientation program, I'll be the only one driving trucks, period. I'm the one that's insured to drive them. I will be the one driving the trucks. If, there is another manager that's going to be driving a truck, then, they need to have training on how to drive a big truck, because not everybody's done that before. So that will take place as well. The driver qualifications and all of that. Once again, I'm going to be the one driving the trucks, period. That's just how it's going to be. I have to be the one responsible for the contents, and so I'm going to be driving the truck. So all the policies and procedures in place, most of those are with regards to moving hazardous materials and things like that. We're not going to be doing any of that, but we are aware of that those guidelines exist and would reference them if they became applicable. Okay, and then as far as substance and alcohol use testing, so I looked this section up, and I believe, if I'm thinking correctly, that I am not required to administer substance and alcohol testing to myself, but I am required to administer it if I want an employee to drive one of the vehicles. So, I mean, obviously I'm not going to be violating those personally, but I believe that section is for your employees. And once again, I'm not letting anybody else drive the truck. Does that kind of answer enough of what you wanted me to answer, or is there something else you'd like me to touch on?
No, that's great. Thank you very much. Moving on to your pre-filed direct testimony, in it you identify on page 3 that as your business grows, we have to purchase a vehicle. Currently, we have a team of 3 people, including myself, and we'll look to expand our staff throughout 2022. And then on page 5, I think you say that our company currently does not have any employees. Which is accurate? Or how do those two things relate?
Yes, ma'am. I think that what I'm trying to delineate here is the difference between the 1099 independent contractors that I currently use to do jobs and what I would consider to be an employee, which would be a W-2 employee, which I plan to bring on starting in 2022. Right now, I'm only operating with 3 independent contractors that with 1099 NECs that I bring in to help me with the moves up to this point. But obviously, once we have the license and we're doing full moves and we're able to build out more of a permanent schedule, then I'd like to bring on W-2 employees. And that's what I mean by, we currently don't have any, W-2 employees within the company. I'm the only employee of the company per se, and I don't count. So we have 1099 contractors that work with us, but no specific company hired employees.
That makes total sense. Thank you very much. My last question has to do with your bill of lading, and I'm not looking at it right now, but I think if you look on page 2, you'll see an interesting word. I think it says Heron, Herron, and you might mean here on. And I apologize, I don't have it in front of me right at this moment, but that was the one potential typo that kind of glared at me. Can you find it and tell me if that's the case?
And you said that was on page 2 of the bill of lading, ma'am?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, it may be on page
Well,
1.
Okay, yes, ma'am. I found it. So we'll get that fixed as well.
Thank you. Do we need to reserve a late filed exhibit for that, Chairman Williams?
Yes, if he's gonna amend it. So we'll reserve hearing Exhibit 5 for that amendment.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I had one follow-up.
Vice Chair Belzer.
I apologize, I meant to ask this earlier. You do not propose to do any packing services, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
All right. Any more questions for this witness?
Chairman Williams, I just have one quick question.
Commissioner Caston.
Really just a curious question out of curiosity. I noticed in the affidavit from Shannon Roth, realtor in Greenville that lives in Greenville. Were they previously in Charleston, or do you know realtors in Charleston, or any particular reason? One in Greenville?
Yes. So my reasoning for that was actually to prevent creating a conflict of interest, because the realtors that I work here in Charleston, I'm contracted with to send them back kickbacks for the work that they send me. So for me to sit here and use a realtor that I'm also paying, to give me referrals, I didn't feel like would be entirely fair. So I actually used someone that I've known even longer. I've known the Roths since I was in high school or even before. And Mrs. Roth has lived not just in South Carolina and Charleston and Greenville specifically, but she actually works as a flight attendant as well. So she's, all over the U.S. all the time. So travel's kind of her thing. So, so the reason I chose to use Mrs. Roth is, she's a really close personal family friend, as well as being someone that's not really in that kind of conflict of interest zone of being someone that I'm also kind of paying on the side. So that's why I chose to use Mrs. Roth. But she's awesome, so I have no problems.
All right, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chair Belzer.
Mr. Holt, you just used the term paying kickbacks. You mind explaining that to me?
So what I mean by that is we give referral percentages. So if I get a referral from a realtor that says, that they refer a client to me, and I do their move, then I will give that realtor a percentage of commission for referring the move to me.
Are your customers?
So that's what I mean by it.
Are your customers aware of this arrangement?
Yes, because my customers are sent to me by the realtor himself. Like the realtor is the one that has to give them the recommendation.
Your customers are aware that their realtor is referring them to someone who is paying their realtor for that referral?
To my knowledge, yes, they are aware that that's what's occurring, because that's the understanding that I've been given. However, this is not something that's actually physically occurred yet. This is something that is obviously in the works to happen in the future once moves are actually occurring. So this isn't something that's happened yet. So if this is something that you're foreseeing would be an issue, I'd definitely like to know that now before it physically occurs.
I think when you refer to something as a kickback, that has a nefarious tone to it. That maybe it's underhanded and not necessarily something that's in the public interest. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'm only one of 7 commissioners, but you might be careful about how you refer to that. And there was another term you just used that was almost equally as offensive. A finder's fee is one thing, a kickback is another, but I thought realtors had some code of conduct as well. They're looking after their clients, and if you're a reputable moving company, you may earn that reputation that realtors would refer business to you. But when you have to pay for that referral, there could be an issue there. So please be careful.
Yes, ma'am. And once again, I do not think that kickback or the other term that I used were the appropriate words to use to describe the scenario that I've given. What I'm describing is obviously a commission-based system for for obtaining business, and obviously I used a poor choice of words, but thank you for bringing that to my attention, and I'll definitely be sure to give that some more looks before it becomes an actual practice for our company.
Thank you, Mr.
Chairman
Hall.
Williams.
Commissioner Caston.
Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you there, Vice Chair Belcher. I thought it was admirable that you stated you wanted to use a realtor out of the area. But listening to Vice Chair Belcher's questions, I believe you understand it will be wise and prudent for you to simply do a good job and do nothing that remotely would look, be, or sound nefarious. Do you understand that?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Okay, no more questions. Thank you.
All right. Any more questions for this witness from commissioners?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Powers.
Stelton Powers.
Commissioner Powers,
Mr.
you have the
Chairman,
floor.
Based upon the information about the real estate, I asked that there be a late file exhibit with a corrected financial statement.
Okay. Attorney Goodwin.
Sorry. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Did you understand the request, or did you
Yes, for the late filed exhibit for the amendment to the financial statement within the application?
Correct.
Yes.
All right. We'll reserve Exhibit 6 for late file exhibit for an amended financial statement. All right. Is there anything else? Attorney Goodwin, do you have another witness to call?
No, sir.
All right. The applicant has presented its case. Attorney Muschin, does ORS have a case?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you know, on October 22nd, 2021, ORS filed a letter stating that we did not intend to file direct testimony in this matter, but we did inform the commission that we had reviewed the application and conducted an inspection of the records and equipments of uniform movers. Based on that inspection and review, ORS is of the opinion that the applicant will meet the requirements of fit, willing, and able as required by the commission's regulations. However, Mr. Thomas McGill is available to answer any questions the commission may have regarding the application and of the records and equipment. But I would first ask that ORS's October 22nd letter be introduced into the record of this matter as the next hearing exhibit.
ORS's October 25th letter will be marked and entered into the record as hearing exhibit 8. 7, excuse me.
7, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unless there's any questions of Mr. McGill, ORS would have nothing further.
Okay. Commissioners, does anyone want to hear from Mr. McGill?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes, sir. I'd like to ask Mr. McGill a few questions, please, sir.
Yes, sir. Mr. McGill, if you would take the witness stand and pause to be sworn in.
Mr. McGill, do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Would you please state your name for the record?
My name is Thomas McGill.
Thank you.
Mr. McGill, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Would you state your title with the Office of Regulatory Staff, please?
Yes, sir. I am the senior assistant manager of safety, transportation, and emergency response.
Did you have an opportunity to visit the applicant's place of business and perform an inspection in this docket?
I did meet with the applicant and we discussed, we went through the application, the tariff, and the bill of lading, and talked through the requirements per commission regulations and helped prepare him for this hearing today. Yes, sir.
Do you believe, based upon your interview with the applicant, that he understands the applicable statutory requirements and regulations?
Yes, sir, I do.
You believe he meets the standard of fit, willing, and able under South Carolina law?
Yes, sir, I do.
You've heard the testimony of the applicant. Does it concern you at all that he has a plan to pay realtors a finder's fee to refer potential customers?
So in hearing that and forming an opinion on that, as long as that finder's fee is not being charged to the customer themselves. And for example, if the final bill is $1,000 and the company charges the customer $1,100 so they can get $100 back to the real estate agent, then we wouldn't have an issue as long as that finder's fee was being handled separate from the actual charges of the move.
So what your testimony is that it would not be appropriate for it to be an add-on fee on the customer's bill?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with the Unfair Trade Practices Act in South Carolina?
No, sir, I'm not.
Okay. I'll maybe ask your attorney about that since you're not familiar with it. Thank you very much. I appreciate your testimony today. No
Yes,
further
sir. Thank
questions.
you.
All right. Any more questions for Mr. McGill? Hearing none, Mr. McGill, you may step down from the stand and you are excused.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I address Mr. Mustian just as it relates to that one question that I had about the Unfair Trade Practices Act?
Please proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you, sir?
Hi. Are you familiar with the South Carolina Unfair Trade Practices Act?
I am familiar with it. It has been a while since I have worked on issues related to SCUTPA, but generally I am familiar with it. Yes, sir.
Good. The thought occurred to me that if this kind of referral fee is not disclosed to the customer as a part of the contract, that could potentially be a violation of the Unfair Trade Practices Act. Do you have any thoughts or opinion on that?
Commissioner Urban, before Attorney Mustian answers that question, I just want the record to clearly reflect that he's not under oath and he's not providing testimony.
I understand. I don't think we need to put him under oath, but it just occurred to me.
No, sir, I wouldn't put him under oath. He's not a witness in the case, but as far as he feels comfortable answering your questions, I just wanted to make sure he's not a witness and not providing testimony in this matter.
Yes, I'm just asking for an advisory opinion. That's appropriate.
That's up to Attorney Mustian, Commissioner Urban.
I understand. and he doesn't have to answer, but maybe the question should go to the applicant's attorney. So I'll withdraw the question and ask the applicant's attorney. Counsel, have you had a chance to consider that as a potential problem going forward?
So once again, I am familiar as well, but have not read that recently. I will certainly discuss this with my client, as the other thought that comes to mind is to make sure that that's not in violation of the realtor's ethics, for whatever reason, if that's something under their professional code of ethics that might be an issue, or what their guidelines on that are. I am not aware. But I'm also happy to provide, additional information in form of a written sort of opinion, if you would like, to kind of touch on those points, if that is something that the commission would like. As I think, as my client stated, this isn't something he's done yet, or the company hasn't participated in yet. So we definitely will need to, look at those parameters if this is something that is even we're able to do either under the Uniform Trade Practices Act or under those ethics for realtors.
Attorney Goodwin and Commissioner Urban, I may be able to offer something that may assist the commission or ease concerns regarding the issue that's being addressed. Attorney Goodwin, are you open to providing a brief to the commission on the issue?
Yeah, absolutely.
Commissioner Urban, would that help address your concerns?
Yes, it would. I appreciate Ms. Goodwin's offer to submit a brief. I'm just trying to look out for your client's best interest. I don't want him to run afoul of the law. And, it just occurred to me that you need probably to look at these issues and address them. And we'd appreciate it if you give you that opportunity. How much time would you need to get that together for the commission?
Yes, absolutely. I would probably ask for maybe a week or two, just so I can have enough time with some of the other things that I have going on my schedule. But that should be plenty of time.
Mr. Chairman, would it be all right to give the applicant up to 30 days to submit the brief?
That's fine. I take no issue with that. I would imagine we would not take up the matter by way of a decision until we receive the brief. And so
yes, sir, I understand.
That could potentially push back.
She may be able to do it sooner, but I didn't want to put her in a time bind. So we just say up to 30 days. Is that all right with you, counsel?
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No further questions.
Absolutely. All right, folks, is there anything else? If not, we are adjourned.